It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, before we get into your work, I want to know this. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed the trajectory of everything for all of us. How did you get through that coronavirus era, and how has it influenced and changed the way that you work and live today?
It ended up being an incredibly fruitful time for me in the beginning. I think, like everyone, I had to go through the normal resistance and then grief of what was our normal day to day, and then letting go of expectations of what we considered to be normal. And I had little kids at the time, and watching them struggle with school and friends and isolation. But what it did for me, and I've seen happen for the collective at the time, was it forced a pause. And it acted as what's called in psychology a pattern disruptor, where normally our brains, which are actually pretty lazy, want to just keep going with our habits and patterns to keep things sort of flowing.
Yeah.
And it disrupted so many of my personal patterns. And in the end, that was a really beautiful thing because I got to renegotiate the life I actually wanted to be living versus the life that I had slowly built over time that had become habitual and really beautiful, but not necessarily the most authentic expression of the kind of life I am now getting to live. So it disrupted the norm, and in the end, for me personally, gave me a lot of gifts.
And I think for the planet, it was kind of a reset. It was a moment of really looking in the mirror and figuring out what we want to do. I hear this narrative so often that people finally kind of went after what they wanted to do because things move so fast and we get stuck in this escalator, so to speak, that we can't get off of. But you can. There's a way that
You
you
can.
can, right? You know?
Right.
So you have a handful of titles. I want to get a handle on what you do on a daily basis. And to synthesize that, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's career day. You're in a school. They're about 11 or 12 years old, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you make that make sense to their brains?
So, my primary title is a clinical psychologist. I've been doing that for almost 2 decades now. And in that, I sit down with people and help them peel back the layers of what's not working and discover their truth, and then help them live and express in life from that truth. As a small business owner of a center called Wellspring, I do this on a group scale. We have the model is similar to a gym, but we would call it like a gym for the soul, where you can come into our space and access all different kinds of modalities to help you strengthen your inner connection to self and your connection to others in this planet by trying out things like meditation, breath work, sound healing, varieties of workshops and retreats. And it's a place where people describe coming home to themselves and being able to tune down the noise that exists outside the walls of our beautiful center. So, two jobs right now, both of
Yeah.
which are really complementary.
I would imagine Wellspring has to have been a godsend because of everything that the world was recognizing with mental health and taking care of ourselves coming out of this pandemic.
Truly, we opened thankfully after the pandemic. So we did not go through what other businesses went through during that time. And part of the reason was as a therapist, I saw the incredible epidemic of loneliness and disconnection. And when I was working one on one with people in the capacity as a therapist, people were making really beautiful strides, but not necessarily translating it into creating a life that was sustainable outside of the therapy room. So they
Yeah.
would come in and get clarity and then go out and to some extent sort of lose that clarity. And what became clear to me was people needed to have experiences with other people in order to solidify and integrate their growth. And so it is like it's this incredible gathering space where people are having deep experiences with other people and getting to take that home for themselves, but also taking home these relationships and being able to see and experience themselves through other people's eyes, which is really powerful.
Yeah. So take me back to when you were young, say 12, 13 years old. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream job?
I wanted to be a therapist.
Okay. So this was
I knew it.
always
I knew I wanted to help people. Yeah.
okay.
And that path took twists and turns. I almost ended up a lawyer, a human rights lawyer, and thank goodness had the common sense to try it out as an intern first. And it just wasn't the right fit for me because it was too removed from the people I was actually helping.
Yeah.
But in that capacity, I did get to touch into what it felt like to be a support to people. So I'd always known I was going to be in the field of quote unquote helping in some way. And when I went to school to become a psychologist, it was like so clear that was the right path.
What were the seeds that were planted early on, whether it was parents, friends, family, teachers, influencers? What were those building blocks that were laid for you to have this empathy, to have this desire to help people?
I had good people around me, but it was something I think I came into this world preceded in me.
Yeah.
I was the kind of kid who would daydream about the different ways I could be of service. Literally, those were my daydreams of how can I help that person living under the underpass? How can I be of service to this kid who, doesn't have what other people have? So that is actually how I spent much of my creative imagination time as a kid was thinking about how to be of service. So
So
it's
who
kind of
was
always in there.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's that eternal battle of, it's not a battle, but it's that eternal thing of nature versus nurture. It's like what was really kind of a part of your architecture when you came in and what's been refined by practice and osmosis, so to speak.
Right. And when people talk about that nature nurture, I always come back to it feels just in the lived experience I've had and then working with other people, truly 50-50.
Yeah.
50% nature, 50% nurture. But, if it's true what I feel that I came into this earth wanting to serve and help, it was then also nurtured by the people around me. So it was, I think, something I did come into form already carrying, but then
Yeah.
it was watered and fertilized by the community I lived in.
So, who's been your inspirational force? Who's been that heroic force that's allowed you to kind of navigate and to find your voice and your vocation?
So people laugh when I say this because I think it's sort of trite and it gives away when I grew up, but it was Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
I every day after school, she came on at 3 o'clock here in California, would drop my backpack and turn on her show. And even as a young kid, I saw how revolutionary what she was doing truly was, in that she was talking about things that other people hadn't yet talked about
Hmm.
and doing it as a woman with a strength and an authority that I didn't see in many other places. There was no kind of hedging or carefulness in the way that she presented truth. And she was the biggest inspiration for me because I think it's true. Like you have to see it to be it.
Yeah.
And in her, I got to see a woman who was not afraid to confront beautiful and difficult things eye to eye. And she wasn't always liked and she wasn't always celebrated, but she kept being her consistent self. And that was a really, really powerful role model for me, even though she was on TV.
Yeah.
She really shaped me.
Well, you know what's interesting about her? I just watched a three-part, I think it was two or three-part documentary series on talk shows and how they exploded in the 90s and how all of these talk shows were trying to up the ante. When Ricky Lake came on it, they took her kind of theme and exploited it, and then all of these things like Springer just went off the rails. But
Mm-hmm.
Oprah saw this and decided not to.
Right.
She would have some envelope pushers, but overall, even though she would have got better ratings and would have kept up with the herd, she was like, I don't care what happens with my ratings. I'm going to do it my way. And I think that's the thing that's always been admirable about her, is that even when Springer was definitely turning into an absolute unbelievable circus show, she was putting books on there. She was
Right.
doing things that were actually going to help people, you know, instead of being pure entertainment. Um, so let me ask you this, and you may have already answered it. If you could meet anybody on the planet right now, spend some time, talk to them that might help you on your journey, who would you love to talk to?
She would definitely be up there for me. Um, there's just an amazing group of women coming up in the wellness world who are doing a really beautiful job of blending mind, body, and spirit. And rather than one person, I would love to have a gathering
Yeah,
of people who are sharing a desire to transform humanity from the inside out, not the outside in,
yeah,
and have a weaving of all the different creative ways we can support people living deeper, truer lives. So when you said that, I actually saw a circle of people coming together
yeah.
and sharing, and none of them are famous, none of them are, in the media as noteworthy, but they're people I'm watching, and the collective energy that's building is really exciting, and I'd love to be part of like a I don't know, like a workshop, play shop about how are we all doing this, and how can we all support each other.
And that's an interesting thought that you threw out too, because I hear from people in therapeutic and healing modalities that as much strife and as much stress that's going on, particularly in America, there's this kind of, we're almost at this point of kind of a new enlightenment, a new enlightenment, a new
Yeah.
period of prosperity, so to speak. Do you have a hope
Yeah.
that we're entering a new
Oh,
realm?
I do. And I say that with utmost humility that for a lot of people, it's not easy to have hope right now for a
Yeah,
variety of reasons. But because I get to peek into people's inner worlds and see person to person what's being seeded in individuals around living with greater compassion, living with greater authenticity, people no longer being satisfied with the crumbs that they've been fed as far as what is a life well lived. People are wanting more.
yeah,
I feel like what I've seen is people going from this like whack-a-mole approach to wellness where there's a problem, you fix it. There's a problem, you fix it. It's a lot about symptom management, which created a world of people who were able to survive and get by. But we were operating from a lot of our survival strategies, which tend to not be the best aspects of ourself. And what I'm now seeing is people not being satisfied with that anymore. People, maybe on paper, their lives look really beautiful and admirable. They have a marriage that's lasted, they have a job that they've felt successful in. But internally, their inner experience isn't matching the outer accolades or markers of success. And I think in the past, people were satisfied with things looking pretty good, whereas now I see people wanting to go deeper and
yeah.
actually feeling a true sense of fulfillment. And that's what gives me hope is we're not okay with the little bit of wellness we've been served up.
Yeah.
We want more.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You have to get into the murkiness of the human mind and helping people through difficult situations. So there's a level of you that has to take that on to help them. How do you protect yourself every day? How do you do that in an effective way, clinically speaking, and then also protect and take care of your own soul? What's that energy every day when the alarm clock goes off to do that at a high level?
Put simply, I trust people's process. I actually don't take on anything from the people I'm working with. I enter into a lot of compassion and a lot of understanding, and I meet them in a place of being able to see what's possible and hold hope even when people are at their darkest. But 20 years of being a therapist has given me not just the knowing, but the true belief that people have to go through certain things in order to break through into the person they're meant to be. So when I watch people going through really hard things, it doesn't shake me. I trust it as part of their process that they have to go through to grow.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into that young version of you trying to be a human rights lawyer, and you have a big book in your hands, and it's like a coffee table book of the life you've lived so far. And you handed it over and said, "This is how life turned out so far." Would that young version of you believe it?
She would, and she would be so happy and tickled and excited that, I actually think the thing she would connect to is, as much as maybe the photos in that book would be really beautiful, it's actually how I feel.
Yeah.
Like I always knew in some way that I was going to have a life that looked good. And I think it's because I was surrounded by people whose lives looked good. And that was part of the privilege I grew up with. And so I always knew in some way that would be the case. What I didn't necessarily know is how truly happy I would be, how absolutely fulfilled I would feel. And that's what I think little girl me would be really tickled by, because little girl me was always able to look really quote unquote good, but she didn't always feel that way. And the fact that the outside matches the inside matches the outside now is so delightful. She'd be very happy.
So let me ask you this. If you were to walk into a room of everybody that's known you in a professional sense, and you could walk up to a podium and tell them a fun story about your life, the first concert you went to, jumping out of an airplane, a seminal place that you've traveled to, just a fun story about your life that might humanize you and have them see you in a little bit of a different light. What would be a fun story you would tell that group?
I don't have any like crazy jumping out of a plane, but I think what people might be surprised to hear is how much of a witch I am. In the sense that I believe in the power of plants. I believe in the power of nature. I believe in inner wisdom to be our absolute guide. And for much of my career, what people got to see was the intellectual sides of me, the parts of me that studied with some of the best leaders in psychology, the parts of me that were a really effective psychotherapist. But really, the parts of me that delight me are the ones that sit and meditate on the grass and listen to the wind and connect to our planet in a way that's really kind of both ancient, but also at this time in our culture, not as quote unquote normal, because we're taught to live more from our mind. And there's a really deep part of me that lives from a very different place, a more
You know,
spiritual place.
it's interesting because when I think about what you're saying as far as like plants and nature and all of that, it actually works better than anything humans have ever done.
It really
Humans
does.
are the ones that mingle and create endangered species and taking, like building on places that have animals and whatnot. But the animal kingdom, insects, everything, nature, everything that grows has completely been fine and done it very well without any humans being involved with it.
Yeah, if we get quiet and let nature guide and lead, it's some of the deepest wisdom, even just like nature's organic cycles of creation, destruction, and rest. Forests grow, forests burn, forests lay fallow. And as humans, I think we override that natural rhythm within and tend to put most of our focus and value in the creation, and we resist the destruction, and we nullify the rest phase. And that's this incredible teacher we're all living on top of. It's literally under our nose, this incredible wisdom. So I actually teach a class at Wellspring called Plant Spirit Meditation, where once a week we work with a different plant, and I teach about the medicinal properties of the plant, then also the energetic properties of the plant, and then we get quiet and we let the plant be our guide
Yeah.
because there's so much quiet, deep wisdom in the natural world. There's a reason why in Japan doctors prescribe forest bathing as a remedy for all kinds of ailments. It's really incredible to reconnect. We're nature, our bodies are nature. We just forget. We become machines rather
You
than
know,
nature.
coming, yeah, coming from Kansas City, I remember the first time I went to Southern California, there was a book of Buddha in the bedside table. It wasn't the Gideon's Bible. And I remember reading it and how much of that was about letting life happen, about nature, about watching a leaf literally fall all the way into a river and go on its course and let it do its thing. And I think there's a lot of that that we just get right. Like I just saw something recently where they were talking to Coco the gorilla towards the end of life. And it was like, I like you people, but you're too much. You're too destructive. This planet's not going to make it. You
No,
have to stop doing what you're doing. And the whole time, the gorilla's signing and just has
right.
all these kind of emotions like humans, but you just feel that nature coming out. Like, you got to do something different. And we know that as
Right.
humans, you know.
We do. It's just this like revaluing of what we used to consider primitive, right?
Yeah.
Like Coco as a primitive being, and realizing that what we once considered primitive, for example, all like the earth-based indigenous communities, actually is some of the deepest wisdom all of us would be very well served to reconnect to being in connection, to being in reverence, to living rhythmically rather than overriding. And also, what I would say, in reference to what Coco said, is like the planet's going to be okay. It's humans who might
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And we have a choice
Yeah.
if we wish to continue as a species or not. Every day, each one of us has choices that put us on one end of that path or the other. And that's part of what we're trying to do at Wellspring is help people reconnect to their true nature so they become better stewards of other humans and themselves and our planet. How we treat ourselves, how we treat other people is a direct reflection of how we're treating our planet. And so, when we take better care of ourselves in a true way, not in a aesthetic external way, but in a true way, and we take better care of one another, everything's going to start healing.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Of everything that you've done in your life up to this point and evolved to, what are you the proudest of?
My kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing that's a pretty common response. They are their own little beings, and I'm really proud of them for being their own people,
Yeah.
having the courage to be their own people. So I'm really proud of my children.
So let's dig into your world a little bit. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think I'm a soul wearing a personality as a costume, as I think you are too, as I think everyone is. So I'm both human Kelly with, all kinds of personality traits like loving and kind of weird sometimes, and curious and intellectual and quiet and loud. And then at my deepest sense, I'm what I feel is a soul, this thing that's connected, this aspect of me that's connected to everything. And I'm both at the same time.
I love it. So if anybody wants to get involved with Wellspring, they want to hire you, they have questions, any of the good business, any of the good work, where do they go?
Check us out on Instagram, Return to Wellspring. We also have a beautiful website, returntowellspring.com. I'm on Instagram, Dr. Kelly Waggoner. And we right now have more local offerings. So we're really trying to focus on in-person gatherings so that people can feel connected to one another. We're going to expand more into the virtual realm, but if anyone's ever visiting Southern California, we have all kinds of amazing events we're doing all the time to touch into soulful play. It's
Yeah.
really fun.
I love it. Kelly, thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. What a great discussion. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.